May I now invite the Honorable Union Finance Minister to kindly address the gathering. Ma'am.
Good morning to all of you all. Extremely pleased to be here this morning. My colleague and member of the Council of Ministers, Pankaj Chaudhary, Secretary General of the WCO, Kunio Miku Miya-ji, board members of the Central Board of Indirect Taxation and Customs, invited past participants and all guests. This global conference on cooperation in enforcement matters, I see it as a major step forward in networking among us, between us, for a cause which is now becoming larger than what any one single agency can handle. Given technology and given the presence of very skillfully trained manpower with which the illegal trade is now happening, a collective effort is what is going to see some results which will have a benefit on all of us, not just the Indian economy, but for every one of our economies. This was an idea, as was referred to by many members, this was an idea which we felt was important as a step to be taken during India's G20 presidency. What would you think is the link between the G20 presidency and a networking conference like this? On many issues today, with the kind of challenges that the world is facing, it is a point on which most of us would agree that unless efforts are going to be collective, in which all countries work together, especially in a technology-driven era, it is not just going to be possible for any of us to work together. And also, with the kind of progressive initiatives which the WCO takes, unless legislative and procedural steps are taken in all the countries which align with each other, which are not mutually contradictory, which can strengthen one and the other, we are not going to be able to see considerable achievements or progress in the customs area. And when I say customs area, I clearly look at two different silos, not necessarily silos, but I put them in two different compartments. One is the facilitation, so that ease of trade is brought in, goods movement is facilitated, and we are able to have a well-streamlined international trade. But that anyway, today, businesses want it, we want it, so all of us would work towards it, is a step which I would think is happening almost by default. But of course, every now and then we have to increase the level of the default functioning. But the most important silo which I want to talk about, and I keep referring it to a silo, but not to mean that it is so watertight that we cannot have things shared from it and into it, is the prevention and deterrence. Prevention of illegal trade, prevention of smuggling, prevention of those which are not at all desirable for any country's sovereign authority. And in prevention, deterrence is now a word which I would like to add, almost you would say mean the same, but no, deterrence is also strengthened by the fact that you're alert, you've held back some of these smuggled goods, and you show a dedication and commitment to completely destroy what you've caught and not again put it into the market in one or the other way, even though it may be legitimate. So prevention and deterrence is that particular area in which I would think this global conference on cooperation in enforcement matter should give a lot of workable ideas. It is important for all governments to know how to deter smuggling, how to deter activities which are endangering our wild fauna and flora, how to deter activities where networked groups think the small fries can be sacrificed, police or the customs authority can catch hold of these small, but the larger fish, which is behind, the brain behind, is never going to be caught. So these kind of small sacrifices, which only embolden the illegal trade or smuggling, should be at the core of thoughts that we today, tomorrow, and day after share among ourselves. Deterrence is what is going to help, and in which I'm sure we are at an advantage as enforcement agencies, because you have the advantage of technology now available among ourselves. So now when I say technology being available, it should go hand in hand with intelligence sharing, with information sharing. And when you share information, it should be actionable. A lot of times when information reaches the authorities, they're not really actionable, or they are either camouflaged, or it is in such a way that you're not able to infer that actionable point. So I would think one of the very important ways is to share information, and consciously when you're sharing it, it should be actionable. Also, the one little advantage that I think as experienced customs officials you have is that the nature of goods, the nature of smuggled or illegally traded goods has not changed over the last 50, 60 years. It again seems to be precious metals. It again seems to be narcotics. It again seems to be precious reserves from the forests or the marine life. So largely, the goods which are getting illegally traded are remaining the same. There are no newer areas in which the customs authorities are baffled, or you're not sure how did this happen about. Now, if this is the way it is showing a trend over the decades, by now I think most of us should be fairly informed of who are the forces behind it. So I place a lot of emphasis in intergovernmental cooperation along with the WCO, so that we are able to crack the brains behind it, the masterminds behind it, with help of local authorities and government. I'm not saying it's simple. I'm conscious these are very difficult areas to trod on, but I think we need to show dedication in being able to bring these efforts completely down, at least for a period, and then when it comes back, because human tendencies will have its own ways of coming back to do that which is not lawful, but it is also periodically our duty to restore confidence in the minds of citizens, saying such activities will be punished, will be curbed, will be deterred. So if only gold, cigarette, narcotics and antiques and wildlife material are being smuggled, and I'm sure a few other things are also coming in, it is your experience which will have to show us the direction and the path forward, so that we are able to contain this evil, because it hurts all our economies. And ultimately, of course, information sharing on innovative thoughts, on legislations which have empowered authorities, and on procedures which have come in handy in being more effective will be useful. And in that regard, I think this Operation Sesha, in fact, I must admit and confess, as much as I kept hearing Shisha, I was wondering, what is this? Although this is a scheme which is run now 3 phases, Operation Sesha refers to that hillock, that sacred hillock in the southern part of this country, Seshachala Hills, from where the red sanders smuggling happens. Am I right, ma'am?
Yes, ma'am.
So, Seshachala Hills is where the red sanders are largely grown, because the suitability of the soil and the climatic condition. I belong to that area, and I'm conscious of how much of redwood goes out of this red sanders, as they're called, goes out of this country, and how much it is sought after. That area also used to be known, and I'm sure it is still known, for growing good quality ebony, which are used in piano manufacturing and also some of the musical instruments manufacturing. These are very precious woods from that area. So I'm happy to launch Operation Sesha Phase 4, and you have shown some success in the earlier 1, 2, and 3 phases. But Operation Shesha should not just be only for red sanders or ebony if it is still relevant, but we should make sure the marine wealth that India has, but particularly in the southern Park Strait region, the rare sea cucumbers and many other lives from the sea, marine lives, will also have to be protected. I can list out a few more precious antiques. India's lost a lot of them. We find them all over the world when we go to the museums across the world. We need all of them to come back to their respective. So should the Egyptians be feeling about the antiques. So should the Romans be feeling about the antiques that they've lost. So all ancient civilizations have lost a lot of their antiques, and they should actually rightfully be back in their respective countries. So without taking much of your time, I'm thankful to the CBIC for having taken my little suggestion seriously and having made sure that this conference happens. But I think the result of the 3-day conference is not just going to give us material for working further, but a networking of this sort should be institutionalized. It should happen every year. I would request the Secretary General WCO that we should, wherever we meet, we should meet every year and make sure best practices are shared, information is better honed to use for everybody, and we get to know each other's strengths and challenges. So thank you very much, and all the very best wishes for the 3-day conference.
Thank you very much, ma'am. We are grateful for your guidance and constant encouragement and support. Thank you so much.